Hi, the topic today is how to be highly effective, and I'm focusing on persisting in your efforts. Life is full of uncertainties. Sometimes life is sweet and bitter, bittersweet. Sometimes it's sweet, sometimes it's bitter. But what is constant is change. But change is for our own good. Because one of the things that are permanent in life is change. So that is why progress and truth is on our side. And that is why we are able to win. But the problem is you understanding your leadership role when there is storm in your life, when there is challenge in your life. Because the challenge will come, definitely. Is part of the process, is part of the growth. So when they come, we don't have to panic. We don't have to surrender. We don't have to give up. We have to persist in our efforts. Don't be discouraged. Because that is one thing God promises us. God promises us change. And when that change comes, He has the capacity to inspire us to weather the storm. I'm going to tell you a story, a familiar story which you know in the Bible. Matthew chapter 8, verse 23. Jesus calming the storm. There was a time the disciples of Jesus and Jesus were in the boat. All of a sudden, storm erupted from nowhere. And the storm swept across the boat. So everywhere was shaky. There was panic. There was fear. But come on, Jesus Christ was sleeping. The disciples became terrified. They became petrified to a level that they forgot themselves. They started panicking. So as they continued to panic, because they didn't know what to do, it was at the middle of it that they realized that, come on, they have Almighty God inside the boat. And then one of them remembered that Jesus Christ was there, and he had to go to wake Jesus Christ from the sleep. And Jesus Christ didn't go to the storm first. He told them, little faith, you of little faith, why are you afraid? So after talking to them that they had little faith, he stopped the storm. He commanded the storm to stop. So, and people were wondering, what manner of man is this? A man who commands the storm, who commands the wind. The same thing applies to us. The problem is, how do we apply this to our life? People think storm is only about the sea. Storm is about, you can have a storm in form of bad health. You can have a storm in form of losing your job. You can have a storm in form of losing your beloved ones. You can have a storm in form of, things are not working fine. So these things are storm of life. Because life, like I said, is full of uncertainties. Events could come in different forms. So these are challenges we're facing every day. But the problem is that when we encounter these challenges, we don't remember who we are. We don't remember anything. then we will become afraid. We start panicking. We start, looking for solutions in the wrong places, not realizing that we have the solution inside of ourselves. So the story of Jesus calming the sea, the storm, was a practical example of, something that comes into our life. When storms like one having health challenges, like one, having, difficulties in marriage, one losing their beloved ones. So when these things come up, the last person you remember to ask is God. The last person you consult is God. Sometimes we consult native doctors. We consult pastors. We consult brothers and sisters. But we leave Jesus Christ, God himself, which is inside of ourselves, which is ourselves. So this story illustrates to us that until we, awoken the God inside of us, then we can be in control of the storm. We can show leadership. The only way you can show leadership is only when you are introspective enough or you are smart enough to rely in the gift God has given to you, because God is already inside of you. So God does not want us to be afraid. That story illustrates that God doesn't want us to be afraid. It illustrates to us that challenges are shadows. That if you confront them, they disappear. Look at how Jesus Christ held the storm and the wind, and they all disappeared. That is the way it happens in our life. But the problem is that when we read these passages, we refer it to outsiders, but we don't refer it to ourselves. We don't apply you don't apply them to our lives. We don't seem to understand that its application is in our own personal problems every day in, day out. So I'm here to provide this leadership, because as far as we concern this world, there's gonna be trouble. God promises us there's gonna be trouble. There are gonna be challenges. There are gonna be topsy-turvy activities around us. So we wouldn't allow the current of this time to sweep us off our feet. So because we are anchored in God, we possess God, and God has made us God. Imagine people, the disciples, they were with God, the Almighty Father, according to Isaiah. Christ is the Father who came in form of a human being. So they were with the Almighty God, the creator of everything, yet they were afraid. So the same thing applies to us. Christ lives inside of us, God lives inside of us, yet we are afraid. We are afraid of our shadows. Because once you are afraid, the last thing you remember is the solution. Once fear kicks in, the last thing you remember is the bright and a perfect solution, which you already possess. So that is why when we have challenges, we don't see anymore. But we have to be calm, we have to be calculated enough as to remember that we possess the will, the power to wither the storm. You don't need to go outside yourself to stop the storm. That's what the passage illustrates. You don't need to see the pastor. You don't need to consult anybody, because already God said he is inside of you. He is with you. And beside, he has made you God. But because of doubt, because of fear, some of us are overcome by challenges, by, what happens around us. So I'm using this opportunity to draw your attention to an important passage in the Bible, which gives you a clue about how to face your challenges, daily challenges, day in, day out. That is the kind of world we are in today. So something that happens around us, you can draw a lesson from it to solve your problems, to show leadership. Leadership is your ability to withstand, pressure, to withstand, topsy-turvy activities that are happening around you, to withstand the fire that is burning around you. And then you still show stability. You still show buoyancy. You still show confidence. Because that is who God is, and that is who God has made us. God does not want us to panic, because he knows that he knows that, challenges are like shadows. They are mirage. That is why when sometimes you are sick, all of a sudden you go to doctor, after looking at you, they don't see anything. After a time, the sickness disappears. Even if it's something that is life-threatening, sometimes they give you treatment, but you find out that the sickness disappears. Like they are like mirage. Sometimes you have a problem, all of a sudden it disappears. So they come in form of mirages. They come in form of shadows. But why are we afraid of our shadow? Well, because nature teaches us not to be afraid. Nature teaches us to rise above our fears. Yes, the fears will be there, but you have to conquer it. Because the person inside of you is God. And you have it. And he said, I've made you God. So what again do we need in time of trouble, in time of challenge? So God has made us God. He has shown to us how to maximize, the what we already have. Nature teaches us many things. Nature even teaches us economics. Nature teaches us how to, maximize the list, bring out the maximum from the list you already have. So who are we? We are God. God produced to make us to form in the smallest unit. That makes us the thing we don't seem to understand. We don't understand that we're already God. But God compresses us and then we become like a human being. We are God in form of a human being. Just like an adult man or an adult child, an adult person is compressed to be like a child. The same way a complete plant, a complete tree, Iroko tree, is compressed to a level of being a seed. So we are God, but in a tiny form. So that tiny form does not in any way remove our godliness. That's why God said, you have to be perfect like your Father. It's only God who can be perfect. So if God is telling us that we have to be perfect, that automatically means we are God. So if you have a mango tree and it's compressed to a seed, does not that mango tree eventually turn out to be a mango seed? Does it not turn to be a mango tree? Answer me questions. So we are like a small seed. When we develop and grow, we become like God. God has made us. So all we need is to develop. Why are the Bible there? The Bible are there. The Bible is there to help you to develop so that you become God. God has made you. It's a process. So if you develop yourself from being a man, you develop to becoming God has made you. That was why Christ was telling you, whatever I'm doing, you can do it more. So I don't know why we have serious doubt about life. We possess everything, yet we're afraid. So we are not supposed to be afraid. There are too many landmarks God left here to guide us, guide us into developing, into the growth we need. All we need is to grow. Just like you feed a baby with a milk, after a time he becomes 12 years. From 12 years he becomes 20 years. From 20 years he becomes 40 years. He's a full-grown man. So it's the same way we have to, we have to furnish and provide the spirit inside of us till it grows to become God. God has made us inside of us. So all we need is continuous progress, continuous growth, continuous learning. As you are learning, you are developing properly, and you are getting your root inside the God. God has made us. So that is why you see some problems today you couldn't solve it, but the next day you solve it, because you must have learned one thing. Let us not be like a dog that was kept, there was a chain around the dog, and the dog, and the food was kept beside the dog. Each time the dog goes to eat the food, they yank the chain back. Each time the dog goes to eat the food, they yank the chain back. And the dog is withdrawn. After like 21 days, the food was there, the dog couldn't eat it, and the dog died of hunger. So don't allow the continuous brainwashing to sweep you, to sweep you off your feet. Don't allow the current events, things that are consistently moving about, coming across you to carry you out of your position. Certain activities, cars, women, money, houses, these are the things, that, sweep us across. Like a current if that flows around and then carries us off our course, carries us off of the direction. And that is why you have to anchor yourself in God. Because once you anchor yourself in God, there is no level of storm and wind that can move you away from where you are. You are immovable. You are unshakable. You are resolute. So that is why I'm saying this, that we need to understand the basic thing. The basic thing is that God has made us God. The basic thing is that God has told us to rise above our fears. Because when you don't fear, then you can now be courageous to, use your gift and talent. A man who is afraid is a dead man, not a living man. A man or a human being who is afraid is already dead. Fear, it means death. So in this world, we are not supposed to fear anybody. Like I always tell you, Fela said, "These my people are always afraid of their shadow, that they cannot fight for their independence. They cannot fight for their freedom." So we are afraid of our shadow. Because of that, we are like the young dog that died despite the fact that bowls of food were kept in front of him. So you have food all over everywhere. You are still dead of hunger. You have food everywhere, but because of brainwashing and the tormenting and the what do I call it, brainwashing and the kind of changing their mind, because of that you become a broken man. Then you say, "I can't try anymore." Or because of what your father told you, "Oh, my son, don't go this, don't do that." You are setting a limitation. We as a human being, we don't have limitation. God has no limitation. Therefore, he gave us the same power he has. We don't have limitations of what we can do. Anybody who's limiting you to anything is telling you lies. There is no limitation. There's no limit to what you can do. Just don't limit yourself. Don't be brainwashed into believing that you have to end up in a corner. Because what limits you is your thinking. What limits you is what you believe. And beside that, you cannot appropriate what you don't believe. If you believe you cannot achieve something, you will never achieve it. God will never allow you to possess what you don't believe in. Because you don't believe in it, you cannot have it. So we damage ourselves by our thinking. We limit ourselves by our thinking. And then we now have self-fulfilling prophecy around us because we are the one that generated that kind of bondage, that kind of limitation. And then that is what limits us in life. God said, "I have made you God." He is not joking. God's word is powerful and it must be fulfilled. So once God has said something, consider it done. Consider it complete. So what is holding us back is ourselves because of self-doubt. One moment. It's self-doubt that destroys us. Self-doubt that probably you learn from your parents, probably from your friends, probably from the environment. You go about and limit yourself. And once you've limited yourself, life becomes self-fulfilling. What your mind cannot imagine, you cannot have it. So our power is in our imagination. Because whatever you imagine, you're already in possession of it, if you don't doubt. It's not, remember what Jesus Christ said, if you believe it, you have it. He didn't say if you do it, he said if you believe it. The main thing is believe. Because if you don't believe something, you can't do it. The first step is to believe. Yes, I believe. It's so powerful. You might try to do something, but as long as you don't believe it, you can't do it. They said what you need in life is 80% belief, 20% skill. 80% belief, 20% skill. So what you actually need in life is belief. A person who believes is better than a person who has the skill. To be active, to be effective, to achieve everything in life is 80% belief. And then you just have 20% skill. It's done. So this is the power we possess. And yet we are crying, we are rambling, yet we are killing other people. Use your potentials. Use the power God has given to you. But there's nothing we can do without hard work. Because to maximize something, you have to work. To bring out the best from the minimal thing you have to work. So as I'm teaching you, I'm teaching myself. That is why I'm doing this. I am teaching myself by teaching you, by saying this every day. Because the more I say it out, the more I learn. I'm a student. I'm also learning. So nobody knows it all. That's the good thing about life. So be persistent in your effort. That is the topic we have today. That means you have to believe in yourself. You don't have to give up. You keep on fighting all the time, persisting in your activity, working hard and believing that it's going to be achieved. Don't be afraid of your shadow. Rise above your fear. At the same time, be humble. Because boldness and humility are not opposing forces. They go hand in a glove. A bold man is a humble man. If you lack humility, you are not from God. If you lack boldness, you are not from God. God wants us to be humble at the same time bold. Because if we are not courageous enough, we cannot bring out the fruit of God inside of us. We cannot even rise above our fears. So I'm using this opportunity to tell you, you can, without a storm in your life, regardless of any challenge, just believe it, act on it, work on it, you get the answer. Thank you. That's very simple.